Hello, everybody. It's Neil, and you're listening to the Big Bad Movie Show again. And JT's with me here today. Say hello, JT.
Hello, folks. JT from Saskatoon here. How y'all doing?
We're all doing just fine. And you know what? We usually just get right into this, so let's jump into the movie. We should be paused at 0, and I'll count down from 5. And we basically start at 0. I'll say play, but that's 0, so that's when you press start.
Okay.
Okay. I have to. I feel like I
We
have
should
to.
mention what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's G.I. Joe the movie.
1987.
Yep, the death knell of the Marvel Sunbow Alliance. Well, that's a topic for the show. Anyway, again, pause at 0, countdown from 5. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. Oh, that brings back memories right there.
Uh, I cannot describe how much joy that logo brought me as a kid.
Yeah.
And outside of Jean-Claude Van Damme's speech and some of the Captain America comics I read growing up in like the 90s and the early aughts, nothing made me want to join the American military more than this theme song.
I know, it's so badass and so jingoistic. You're like,
are
I
we
got
allowed
it.
to swear in this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, no, this opening is 80s as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, look, Cobra still has Shield helicarrier.
Yeah. This entire opening is nonsensical because if that thing was really...
and we just got teabagged by a Cobra Viper.
Yep. If this thing was really showing up, this whole bay would be filled with aircraft carriers because it's fairly apparent that G.I. Joe knew they were coming.
Oh, yeah. And you know, if this was like a Fox News era, they'd be calling for like the Joes to be replaced for failing to stop this attack.
Mm-hmm.
And the manliest man in all of 80s animation.
There he is, our hero. The guy who killed Optimus Prime right there, Duke.
Yeah. And the man that Channing Tatum killed, but that's another movie for another day.
Yes.
Like, seriously, and it's not supposed to be so much like a running narration, but Cobra attacks this. Did they not see, like, the literal mob of G.I. Joe dragonflies that were parked on Ellis Island? Like, because you saw it there where the Joes run around the corner, and there's like 100 dragonflies, like gun hose in one right now.
Well, this is Cobra we're talking about.
Well, yeah. Also, Snake Eyes has a death wish, and we love him for it.
Yeah. It's often been debated as which villain is more incompetent, Cobra Commander or Skeletor?
I'd say Skeletor actually accomplished shit and was ultimately thwarted, whereas Cobra Commander is just the putz. But it's Chris Latta, and I can't help but love him.
Yeah. Well, there are all these explosions all over the place, and the Statue of Liberty never gets hit once.
Yeah. Or it's just full of so much American machismo, she can take a hit. And given this is 2 years before the Ghostbusters showed up and sprayed her insides with mood slime, so... Like, as a kid, I constantly tried... Okay, no, wait, I gotta pause. I defy you to explain the physics here. 8 seconds on the clock, at least 1,000 feet up the thing. He boots her off with 4 seconds left and manages to escape the blast radius.
Right.
Is this man is manly on a scale of Kurt Russell plus Bruce Willis.
He certainly is.
And just a dash of John Matrix from Commando.
Maybe even a little bit of Duke Nukem.
Yeah. And the other thing I got to say about this opening, just like, it's almost like one of those examples of where the animation in the intro is more extravagant or better produced than anything in the actual product.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the whole movie, folks. Good night.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just look at that intro with all the lights and the balloons. Like, if this didn't cause someone an epileptic seizure, I'd be surprised.
Yeah. So this might surprise you, but I have a fan theory for this movie. And not just a fan theory, but a timeline theory. And you know how much I hate fan theories and timeline theories.
You can enjoy talking about it. It's not like they have to matter. So.
I know, but did it ever bother you that the Pyramid of Darkness never affected the Transformers? Like, at the very least, Megatron should have been pissed and gone after Cobra Commander for that. So my theory is that the entire series of G.I. Joe, all 5 or 6 movies in all, happened like between 1980 and 1983. And then the Transformers awoke after this movie takes place. And it actually fixes a few different timeline hiccups because Marissa Fairborn, if you do the math, she should be 19 at the most in the 3rd season of Transformers. And I'm even being generous with that. So if you put G.I. Joe before Transformers, it kind of fixes a few hiccups.
It's in that far-off year of 2005.
Yeah.
And I just got to say, I love Grandiose, chewing the scenery. Oh, like, I love this version of Serpentor. It is not my favorite version. That's still the one from the comics.
Yeah.
But, oh, God, and I'm just going to look up on my tablet here so I don't ruin the movie. Who voiced Serpentor?
Was it Dick Gautier? Is that his name?
Oh, yeah, I'm just looking at the cast list on the movie wiki here right now.
Yeah.
Richard Gautier, yeah.
Yeah. He died this year.
Oh, man.
And he was also Rodimus Prime.
Oh, dude, hand over heart. Like, no, but I mean, that's like, just without even, like, when Sir Roger Moore passed, you know, it's just like, dude. Also, I love how Cobra Commander considers himself such a pimp because he comes in, he's ripping off Mindbender's style with that cape, he's got a pimp cane, and he's still outshone by the genetically engineered Cobra Emperor with the flying chariot. And you think he named the snakes on his shoulders? Like Heckle and Jekyll or Bert and Ernie or something?
Bert and Ernie.
Yeah.
Oh,
man. It's
Ekans and Arbok.
Oh, yes. He foresaw the coming of Pokemon and planned accordingly. It's just, out of all of Cobra High Command, the only ones I did not like were Tomax and Zaymot, because that whole Corsican twins thing just creeps me out. Whereas I've always had a love for crazed mad scientists, so of course, you know, Mindbender's got my boy. You know? And this honestly gave me the creeps. It's like where Pythona.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you be freaked out if your car melted out from under you?
A little bit. You know, if they ever make a porn parody of G.I. Joe, they should have it so that if one of the Cobra twins has sex, the other one feels it.
You know, you say that, and then suddenly I got an idea for a porn parody, but we get so off topic. But see, I love the animation here, and it wasn't until years later, like you go back and you watch the original Sunbow series, the less said about the Deke series, the better.
Yeah.
You know, aside from the fact that I kind of dug that they turned Snake Eye's outfit into like a Jason Voorhees ripoff in that series.
Yeah.
But you look at the animation from the original series versus this, like, this isn't like such a higher quality, but it is still noticeable how sharper it is.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, you know, they put effort into it. This was like the history goes, this was supposed to come out in theaters, and then unexpected production delays, and then the whole debacle with Optimus Prime dying.
Yeah. Basically, Marvel Sunbow was hemorrhaging money during the period of time that we assumed that they were on top of the world.
Because it was the 80s.
Yeah.
How could you not be making money?
They just came out with this hot Transformers movie. They were basically dominating afternoon TV for kids. Yeah. And then they just promptly fell off the planet.
Yeah. I wonder if they got a Cobra-themed title for their mechanics. Like, I don't know enough about her. Like, was it herpetology to think of one off the head? But I'm gonna have to write that down for later.
No, we must protect you.
Yes. And if you ever wondered where that sexy librarian fetish came from, guys, this is where it came from.
Yeah. I forget who said it, but The Baroness was a lot of little boys' first girlfriend.
Yeah, never felt a twinge of attraction to Tila, but the Baroness, I was like, yeah, hole.
Yeah. So yeah, the aborted theatrical release, you can kind of hear the after effects of that because they never did an official soundtrack for this movie. This is all the music from the TV show, and even a little bit from Transformers.
Yeah.
There's one specific piece of music, I'll point it out later, that pops up, and it's clearly Transformers.
I just love the sound effects of like these octopus face huggers that she's using.
Hmm.
And it's a lot of a lot of like the organic sound effects for the whole Cobra Law power set. I always dug that, like the little touches like that.
Yeah. The kind of slimy toothpaste tube noises that they
Yeah.
make.
Well, it's the, like I said, it's the little things. It's like 80s slasher movies with, like, that's why they're so good.
Hmm.
Oh yes, the lock down all sectors, all 5 sectors of one hallway.
Hmm. Close the blast doors! Close the blast doors!
Yeah.
I like that we don't see who she hurt there.
Yeah. We just assume it's some nameless drones.
Oh.
Because you got to wonder, versus like all the Cobra Vipers and all the green shirts in G.I. Joe, how is there anyone else to like work in the automotive industry, a convenience store, selling oranges on the side of a highway?
All of these men presumably have families, as seen in the Austin Powers movie.
Yeah. Well.
That line.
Yeah.
And she doesn't do anything for you?
No, she did. I was never crazy about bald-headed chicks.
Yeah.
I mean, other than that, I'm just kind of like, yeah. But some kids who eventually go on to become metalheads and tattoo artists look at her and they're like, that's me. That is my goal. I just love the emphasis she put, Pythona.
Like how everyone's name is kind of a pun on what they do or where they come from.
And I was like, here, let me show you my ultra gooey compact.
Yeah. Now, why are they here? I never understood that. Let's go halfway around the world to test this thing.
Yeah, because the mountain folk aren't going to raise enough of a fuss to test this highly technical and complicated energy broadcasting device.
Ricola.
Yeah. See, here's the thing. You don't really see it, but is Quick Kick wearing shoes?
Probably.
Because any other mission you ever see him in the series, it's pants, bandolier of throwing stars, and that's it. And I love the way he's like, if it works. It's like the manliest man in the entire American military. He doesn't have time for computers.
Mm.
But how do you fuel the broadcast energy transmitter?
I was just thinking that. How does it solve the energy crisis? What is it broadcasting?
What is it? Human blood? Unused scripts from spec comic book movies?
We have to fuel it with this stuff called Soylent Green.
Now, what about that warehouse full of ecto cooler? Yeah, I like that. 3 shots, snow jobs, tank, or was that the attack track or Havoc? Havoc, that's it.
I forget all these these vehicles' names. I know one is called the Snowcat, and that's only because there was a Transformer called Snowcat
I
on
remember that.
one of the wretched TV shows that came out, I think
That was
last decade.
yeah, that was Energon. It was one of the Cybertron trilogy,
Yeah.
Unicron trilogy. That's what it was called.
Oh, poor Chris Latta.
Yeah. You wonder if there's a what would they have brought him back to voice Cobra Commander in the movies? Just to do like some ADR if he had still been alive.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah. Because, I mean, they brought back Frank Welker and Peter Cullen to do Optimus and Megatron in the Michael Bay movies. And I've just blackened my soul by mentioning that unholy abomination.
Cover.
No, sorry, you go.
I was going to say cover him. How exactly?
Well, I would think cover is like you stay at that crouch position, keep firing, not, raise yourself up and give them better targets.
Yeah.
And the other thing, like Snow Job, Rob Paulson, ladies and gentlemen, Yakko Warner,
Oh,
Pinky,
yeah.
The Mask. It always tripped me out when I hear stuff like years later. It's like, that's Rob Paulson. Like, you would have loved the look in my face when I realized he was Throttle from Biker Mice from Mars.
Yeah. And this was back when he was fairly new. I was surprised that he shows up in these cartoons. Like, he's one of the aerial bots too, like the sarcastic one. I forget his name.
Skydive?
Uh, Maybe, I don't know.
And here's the other thing. You basically have a flat surface made out of, photo, like sun panels and whatnot. How do you focus that?
I don't know.
It looks like he's just throwing like a wad of lightning bolts across the field.
Yeah. Well, again, this is another gadget in a Sunbow cartoon where exactly what it does is not really clear.
Yeah.
Because it's broadcasting energy, but it's also kind of like a remote control to all these gadgets they have around the battlefield.
And again, I know I'm speaking logic in a 80s cartoon, but if you're testing this stuff in a foreign country, presumably with, permission, do you really want to be using live ammunition?
Right.
And another logic question. You're in the Himalayas. Those snakes should not be moving.
That's true.
Like, I know genetic anomalies, they're freaks, whatever. That's 2 times now that Ernie's been ripped out of his spot and used as a weapon. I think Bert's the preferred son in this scenario.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, and this is something that bothered me ever since I was a kid. Can he take that suit off?
I believe so, because the first time he gets off the operating table, when they make him, he's naked. So that is a suit.
Yeah, but you never see him take it off again. Not that I need to see that. It's just like literally at this point, he's been wearing it so long that if they tried to peel it off, they're taking off all 4 levels of skin.
How does he poop?
These and more fascinating questions to come. Okay, oh yeah, like you look at some of these vehicles, like the stun pods, like those are at best for desert warfare. The dreadnought cycle shouldn't even be working in this environment. I can't believe I'm just like, oh my god, why am I not have thought of this before?
Yeah. Like I said during the Transformers commentary, it's out of love. If you really didn't care, you wouldn't even bother watching it.
This is true. I like how everyone's just like, they're in the middle of the Himalayas. It's got to be like minus 40 Celsius or something. At least like your lungs are freezing at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Mindbender's probably got some like fine cognac mixed in with his coffee. Thunder there, well, he's just stupid, so he doesn't feel it.
Mm-hmm.
These Vipers, well, they're dead. They just don't know it yet. Oh, and here we're about to find the savage land of the G.I. Joe universe. Like, is there a name for this concept where you find like a lush tropical paradise in a frozen wasteland?
Uh, I don't know.
So I feel like there should be. And here's something else. I love that the as bad as the first live action G.I. Joe movie was, I do appreciate the nod in design that Destro's rockets took from, the giant redwood toadstools.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
How
how that
does how is he piloting that?
he's doing Kegels. And not to sound gross, maybe he's staring it with his massive dick because it's roadblock. The guy
Yeah,
walks into battle one arm wielding a 50 cal machine gun. Any man that can pull a Ma Deuce like that, I got respect for.
true.
All of a sudden, jihadists show up to attack the Joes.
Oh wow. Okay, right here, this music. This is the music from Transformers the movie, the city battle scene. Now it's a
Yeah,
different version of it, but it's the same tune.
yeah.
And I was never as familiar with G.I. Joe as I was Transformers, so I don't know if the guys getting slaughtered right here are like old toys that, wouldn't be in the toy line at this point anyway.
I think they brought out the Cobra Law Troopers as like one of those like mail-in sort of thing, like kind of how they had that thing in Marvel Comics where you like fill out the ad for like the guy in like the silver like helmet and you could pick your own code name and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So I think it was probably a mail away, something like that.
Well, I'm talking like the G.I. Joe guys, the guys who are getting
Oh,
beat up right here. Because I know G.I. Joe was a lot looser about that. Like, they kept people in the toy line, or they kept people in the TV show longer than they were on the toy shelves.
yeah.
Like Duke was long gone when the show actually started.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's also like, was it Worlds Without End, like the two-parter where a bunch of them go to an alternate universe where Cobra wins, and then like it was a Clutch Stealer and a Breaker, I think, stay behind, and that was to reflect an issue of the Marvel comic where they were lost in combat or something,
Hmm.
or they shipped out of the GI Joe organization. And in my head canon, even as a kid, I see a scene where Zartan looks at Torch, and Torch hands him $20. Is like, you called it. Just when Cobra Commander takes off, because Zartan's always out to make a buck.
Right.
See that right there? He got knocked on the back of the head with a huge ass blade. How is he not bleeding in the snow right now?
This guy I
Uh,
don't remember being in the TV show too much.
he was there, but he came in around the same time the toy came out, where you held him in the light and his skin would darken, and
Yeah.
then you put him in like warm water to remove the grayness. Which is also like that Jack Nicholson Joker action figure from Batman '89 that I was never able to get as a kid.
Hmm.
Because he came with like the helicopter backpack that we all know Joker has.
Yeah.
And looking at the GI Joe base, did you ever realize that they're the Batman of this universe? Because there's also an American military. Like
True.
they're supposed to be a special forces unit. It's like that joke. You realize that Gotham City has a police force, and it's like, yeah. I love that. Like, wouldn't he be written up on charges for like cocking his weapon in front of a superior officer?
Probably. I'm just wondering how G.I. Joe is even still in existence. It's like, okay, we commissioned you guys how many years ago, and there's still Cobra.
Yeah,
You guys
but
can't even kill the top 10 guys in the organization. They're all still there.
and ladies and gentlemen, the biggest asshole in the GI Joe team
Hmm.
versus the biggest asshole in the comic books, but that's because he was such a complete and utter badass. And I read somewhere that in the comic book version, Beachhead is essentially supposed to be like John Wayne if he was a GI Joe member, because
I guess
he's
I could
just,
see that.
you know. I love that, like, what the fuck look on Beachhead's face when he goes, "Donata, man."
Hmm. So, like, half of these guys were only ever made into toys because the way the timeline worked is that they would have been designing the toys in, like, 85, 86, but that's also around the time that Marvel Sunbow started to tank, and so they probably aborted a lot of the plans to make the movie toys.
Yeah. I also kind of wondered, because I was reading the comic book growing up, and I kind of wondered when, like, when the movie come out, did they kind of gauge the reaction to certain characters to give them a better, like, performance in the comics? Because, I mean, Chuckles and Jinx definitely went on to have, like, fairly big character arcs in the comic series.
Hmm.
And here's another example of music recycling from the TV show.
Oh, yeah.
This is another one of those little bits that I always loved as a kid. Like, this was like perfect, like, get you hyped kind of music.
Did they release this? I thought I saw plans that they were going to release the TV show soundtrack.
There may be La La Land Records. We'd have to talk to Blanchard about that because he would
Uh,
know.
Because I always wanted that. And I hope they include the G.I. Joe movie theme because that never got released.
Yeah.
Not a clean version of it anyway.
Yeah. And I love, there's been in the, there was the Devil's Due G.I. Joe series that started in like 2002. And it's one of the few complete comic book runs I have in my collection, which is something I'm proud of. You know, there towards the end of the run, there is like Cobra makes this push to like literally take over the world, like for reals, and they have little shots of like certain characters from all across the franchise. I was like, holy shit, they use Big Lob. So, and he's actually had two different comic book appearances. There was that in the current Hasbro IDW GI Joe comic that's like tied in with like Micronauts and Transformers. He's shown up as just like the world's most famous NBA player.
Ah.
But that's one of the great things about like the IDW GI Joe comics, because you thought it was in their own universe, and then they tie that in with the Transformers, and all through that first major run, there were all sorts of nods to the different continuities. Like there was this one where Cobra tries to take over the Golden Triangle in the Far East, like the drug territories.
Mm-hmm.
And G.I. Joe goes in, and they're using the Rock command vehicle from G.I. Joe Sigma 6. And a whole bunch of other, like, comic book or cartoon-only vehicles show up in this run.
Oh, we missed the line where he said something about, I drive the car, he finds the bombs. We tried it the other way, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a classic joke. You throw the bomb, the dog chases it. And you know what you do in that case? Shoot the dog and shoot to kill.
It should have blown up right there.
Yeah. You didn't have enough time to pat him on the head.
I love that line. I don't think Chuckles ever showed up in the animated series.
No, he didn't.
So I'm just kind of, because I remember in the comic book, like, he's called Chuckles because he's like a CIA agent who eventually joined the G.I. Joe team, and he was kind of sarcastic and a comedian, sort of like making jokes. So Why did they not give him a speaking role? Like Big Lob had a speaking role.
Yeah, they made him into a mute in this movie. I don't know if that's intentional or they just never gave him a line.
Yeah. But that would have necessitated him turning the vehicle around Beachhead.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, don't do that, Beachhead. Don't do that.
What in that's a line from this show that we hear all the time.
Yeah.
What in the bloody blue blazes?
Yeah.
So it's funny that this is called no, I'm getting my movies mixed up. It's funny that this is called G.I. Joe the movie because this is, if you are familiar with this series, then you know this is like the fifth one because all those five parters were actually made to be movies.
Yeah, like TV movies.
Yeah, I don't remember what the first one was called, but the second one was like Revenge of Cobra or something like that, and then there was Arise Serpentor, Arise, and and of course the Pyramid of Darkness, which I mentioned earlier.
I just wonder if Hasbro's going to sue the makers of that movie Geostorm. Because this movie Geostorm that's coming out this summer is about a weather-dominating satellite that malfunctions and creates like world apocalyptic storms on Earth. I'm fairly certain Hasbro's got a case.
And as with Transformers, they did a pretty good job of integrating the stars into this movie. They sound fairly natural. I've seen special guest stars show up in cartoons, and they don't really work because they're not really trained to be voice actors.
And we're referring to the fact that the voice actor of Lieutenant Falcon, folks, is TV's Sonny Crockett, Don Johnson.
Yes.
And how did this guy make Lieutenant? Like, I'm seriously asking that.
Yeah. He's criticizing Falcon for this, but you know, G.I. Joe is pretty lax as it is.
Yeah.
I mean, there are guys on this team who technically aren't even part of G.I. Joe, like Shipwreck. They just kind of, he's just kind of a tag along. He showed up in an episode, and he just stuck with them. I mean, there's no uniform to speak of. They all have their own identity as far as wardrobe goes.
Yeah, well, I mean, Shipwreck had his uniform. I mean, he moonlights as a member of the Village People.
I love I love how Shipwreck was described to the actor. He was told to voice him like Jack Nicholson, but play him like Popeye. And I heard that, and I'm like, oh, of course.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so if he's supposed to oh wait, there was a Jack Nicholson movie from the '60s where him and another guy are retaking like this Navy guy to like Navy prison, and it's basically like the last 24 hours before he goes to jail, so they're just showing the kid a good time.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. Is that where that comes from? To tell him voice like Nicholson?
Possibly.
Yeah. And I love how she goes at just straight Cockney right here.
Yeah.
My earring.
I heard a rumor that this was supposed to be a slightly topless scene. Like, we were going to get to see some boob here, and that really surprises me because you can get away with having a character say shit and damn, but I think that was a little early in this sort of property to try something like that.
Oh god, okay. Pythona and Nemesis Enforcer, they're essentially the Moose Mason and Midge of the G.I. Joe universe.
Yes.
'Cause
That
you know, any guy that ever looks side-eyed at Pythona, he's going to meet a very sticky end.
that scene where he throws the pillow at the electric bars always kind of makes me laugh a little because it. I don't know, the way he's drawn when he faces away from the camera makes him look really silly. Just
Yeah.
that headdress. Because he looks like a man who just perpetually hangs out in his pajamas.
True. You know that. Not to be gross, but Lieutenant Falcon has the world's worst case of wandering dick syndrome. Like, dude, I know you're in the military and you've got a boner 24/7, in which case you should really go see Doc or Lifeline, because that's a serious medical condition.
If
Like,
if you have wandering boner for more than 4 hours, consult Doc.
yeah. I'm not even to question how Zorana copied his security gum.
Yeah.
And you realize all the traps that he's laying out here only really work if you're there watching the cameras.
This is actually kind of funny that
Yeah.
that they juxtapose this dialogue with them actually breaking in.
And this is essentially like they're not dead, because nobody dies in this movie after what happened in Transformers.
Right.
But this is essentially the Decepticons boarding the ship scene from the beginning of the Transformers movie.
Right. These guys are, for all intents and purposes, gone.
Yeah,
But they got nerfed. Their deaths got nerfed.
like Gun-Ho is so clearly Ironhide.
Also, when they blew that door open, I immediately thought, the Cobra guys should be dead, because that was a big explosion, and it was on their side of the door.
And that's how you use a bazooka properly. What else is Alpine going to do? He certainly can't hook and ladder the guy.
Hmm.
You could have put some more hustle on that Jinx. I like these guys are jumping out of second story
What
window.
the hell?
They're just in full combat dress at any given moment in the barracks, and they just leap out the window.
I mean, that should have just blown out his knee. And you know what else? This isn't even the most absurd scene in the movie. There's a big one coming up.
You
You're
know,
in trouble now. A G.I. Joe actually died.
I'm not saying General Hawk would have done this, but he could have pulled his sidearm, popped him in the head, and nobody would have blinked.
Mm. We're all just gonna turn away.
And what happened? Oh, a round went off from an enemy blaster. Nothing we could have done. I just love that. Hey!
I love the stories about how this movie came to be, how they wanted to do a completely different story about a guy who was like this philosophical radical that founded Cobra out of some other ideology, and basically Cobra Commander came along and fucked it up and took it over. But then Serpentor came along. That Hasbro had come up with Serpentor to usurp Cobra Commander anyway, and Hasbro was basically boned, or no, Sunbow was basically boned in their attempt to tell the story of the world's most dangerous man. And that's how we got to this movie. Because the complete opposite of the Transformers is that instead of the movie leading into the next season, in this case, the second season of G.I. Joe sets up the movie, where Serpentor gets created, and then that's foreshadowing to this movie to explain. This movie explains how Doctor Mindbender got the idea to make Serpentor in the first place.
Man, I remember when I looked at the credits a little more closely, like I don't think it was like the first or even the second time I ever watched this movie as a kid, and this is like a movie I would watch as often as I could.
Mm-hmm.
My brother got it for Christmas one year, and I was just like, fuck yes, we're watching this now. And when I saw it's Mickey, it's the Penguin, it's Burgess goddamn Meredith as Globulus.
Oh yeah, he's great in this.
And just like the power in his voice is like, okay. Oh, and every time I see that thing, I think of the worms from Star Trek Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
They put tings in my ears. I also love how quickly Serpentor, the Cobra Emperor, capitulates to this dude flying around in a giant cabbage.
Mm-hmm.
And again, another logic question. How is Cobra Commander able to breathe in there? Because even if he's got like a respirator in the helmet, that oxygen ran out a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
And I remember in the show, their headquarters, like with that giant ass gun, which makes no sense anyhow, other than to look at us in our big phallic symbol of superiority. I just remember it topped out at like maybe 10 levels, like 10 floors. In this movie, it's like 30 goddamn floors.
I know, it
Like,
looks a lot bigger in this movie.
like at this point, has G.I. just become the American military and this is the new Pentagon?
Possibly. They don't seem to answer to anybody. There is no America in this movie. It's just G.I. Joe and Cobra. You know, I always forget that Wild Bill actually ranks pretty high.
Yeah.
Because you usually think of him as just a helicopter guy who has the Texas accent.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. Like, okay, you've seen American Ninja 2, The Confrontation, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Marine commander in that movie on that island, his nickname is Wild Bill. And I was listening to a podcast, Junk Food Cinema, they're talking about the film. The writers of that movie directly molded that character after Wild Bill from G.I. Joe.
Oh, wow.
Like, he's got the big red stash, you know, he wears a cowboy hat at one point. This is honestly one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Oh, yes.
That was like at the slaughterhouse, and I like covered my mouth with one hand, pointed with the other. It's like, oh my god, he's gonna be in the movie. Like,
And
that.
it's so weird thinking that they got him for this franchise. That among all these silly characters based on toys, there's Sergeant Slaughter, the wrestler.
Yeah,
But
like
they
that.
integrate him very well.
Oh yeah, and just when we all watched. If you're an '80s kid, you watched wrestling, like the Mega
Yeah.
Powers and whatnot. But when Sergeant Slaughter came out, and then he joined GI Joe, and you can have his action figure and his wrestling figure, and he was in the comic books. Like, he won the trifecta of awesome.
Yeah. Did you ever wonder if WrestleMania 7 is canon with G.I. Joe?
Oh god!
He joined up with the Iraqis and got dishonorably discharged.
I like how they're essentially was it the supposition is that Cobra Law was essentially Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
I love that line.
They're using technology. Oh no.
Well, it just sounds like such like the most racist hatred that Globulus has for technology.
Hmm.
Like, you use a calculator? Pah.
Here we go. Yeah, here's where I think this is the part that makes Flint Dille and Buzz Dixon cry the most. Because they had such different plans for this, and Hasbro threw the monkey wrench into this.
What did they want to do?
Well, like I said, the most dangerous game, or no, I'm getting my movies mixed up. The most dangerous man in the world, like I just described, they had different plans for Cobra Commander. He was just supposed to be a guy with a fucked up complexion, and you could see in some episodes of the show when he has his mask off, and it's just him facing away from the camera. It's just he's clearly a Caucasian guy, and for this they had to make him into a snake man who's part of a long lost civilization. And the real funny thing is that the name Cobra La was just something they threw in as a placeholder. You know, it's like Shangri-La, but it's kind of like Cobra La, and the Hasbro guys loved it.
Oh,
And that is a lesson to everyone who is creative. Never give anyone else any idea that isn't your best idea, because there's a chance they may pick the bad idea.
yeah. Just killer's space toadstools.
Hmm.
Killer Tomatoes got nothing on this.
What is it with Sunbow cartoons and spores?
Yeah.
Oh, this is the freaky part where the people. Yeah.
Oh, and this is how Mutant League was created. If you want to make yourself feel old, folks, remember that cartoon.
Hmm. I try to remember the video games, not the cartoon. Those are funny games because it allowed you to play dirty, and you could bribe the ref and put landmines on the field.
Yeah. Versus like the one episode of the cartoon where Bones is injured to the point that he's a paraplegic and he has to learn respect for paraplegic athletes.
Hmm.
But don't worry, Nemesis Enforcer has a hot bowl of soup for you.
Hmm.
Anything but the spinach, Mom! Anything but the spinach!
And the Deke series almost immediately undoes this. With, I believe Baroness actually uses voodoo to change him back. But what's weird about that cartoon, that five-parter Dragon, Operation Dragon. Yeah,
Dragonfire.
it was written by a Sunbow guy. It's kind of like this half and half kind of mutant, chimera of a cartoon, because it's still kind of Sunbow, but it's Deke.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's definitely not anywhere near as bad as the Sunbow season 3, or I'm sorry, the Deke season 3 that got made a couple years later.
Yeah. You gotta wonder if the guys that wrote this movie like were inspired for Cobra Commander's transformation by like that old 70s horror movie with Dirk Benedict where he's like slowly turned into a snake man.
That could be.
I'm reaching there with that one, but it's a thought.
Yeah. Also, what's weird about Operation Dragonfire is the opening song, because it seems to be from Sunbow season 3, the aborted season, because Cobra's supposed to be gone after this. And sure enough, that theme song does not mention Cobra at all. And it's like, that seems like they have an asset. I've asked people who worked at Sunbow, I asked Flint, I asked Buzz Dixon, I said, "Is that from your season 3?" And nobody remembers. Because and the big one is that you hear Duke's voice right at the top, and that actor was not in the Deke series at all.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had to get that out before we got to Sergeant Slaughter,
Oh yeah.
because this is the scene. These guys, I don't remember if they were toys or not. Like I said, a lot of the characters from this movie never made it to toys.
Yeah. I think Mercer might have made it.
Yeah.
And I know Red Dog was offered as like a fan exclusive through like GIJoe.com a number of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe the whole Renegades pack. The man, the myth, the legend.
Oh yeah. Looking a bit better than he did even at that time, because I can't think of Sergeant Slaughter without that gut.
This is true, but the one thing they did get to match him in the show versus real life is that chin.
Yeah.
Like Bruce Campbell's got some competition.
This line coming up here. An itty bitty ditty bag. Or did he already say it? Oh, here it is. That's like one of the 2 quotable lines in this movie. The other one being, "We all go home or nobody goes home."
Yeah.
And I love the douchebagginess that's coming up here,
Oh yeah.
where they all leave him behind. It's like, do you expect me to run? No. Or do you expect me to walk? No, you can run.
I like how they all kind of growl at him in their own
Mhm.
unique way.
That ridiculous tank. He's got this one-seater tank that where he's wide open. You know, no, anyone could hit him. Anyone could pick him off in that thing.
Pretty much. You know, I gotta say, out of the live action movies, the direct to DVD toy tie in movies, this is still the best movie. I would put G.I. Joe Retaliation at number 3, G.I. Joe Resolute number 2, and then this number 1.
Yeah. Well, Sunbow had a policy about how the toys were represented. They really didn't show a lot of toy functionality. Like they didn't make it a point to show what the playsets did. They really wanted to make it a character driven. All these shows, they wanted to make character driven franchises.
Yeah.
So that's why Autobot City was its own thing apart from Metroplex, because if you just had Metroplex, it would look ridiculous.
Yeah. And I remember the Deke series, like a lot of episodes would focus on, like they had kind of a core cast of characters, but there would still be like episodes that would focus on like entirely new characters, shit
Yeah.
like that. I remember there's one episode where the Cobra Night Creeper leader got hit in the head like King Tut from the old Adam West show and thought he was like a long lost pharaoh.
Oh, God. See, that's the kind of stuff I don't like about the Deke series.
And I think that was the first episode of the Deke series I ever saw because my brother got like a G.I. Joe figure for Christmas that came with like that episode on a videotape in the package.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fairly certain an episode like this might spontaneously cause Snake Eyes to start screaming. Like, I don't care how badass you are as a ninja commando, you're going to soil yourself.
Cobra Commander is turning babyface here.
Yeah.
Oh no, actually the most quotable line from this movie is "I was once a man."
And that's some like don't get me wrong, I love The Rock playing Roadblock in Retaliation. Couldn't we get like one line, like one rhyme, like I'm in to bash some snakeskin or something? Like, come on.
Yeah, that was his most defining characteristic, is that he always rhymed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's far too late for this, but he's almost like Mr. T. You couldn't cast Mr. T as Roadblock, but that's who he always reminded me of.
Oh god. And here's something. If Nemesis Enforcer had survived the final battle, he would have had a career working at the Sears perfume counter.
Oh, that stuff is just about as effective on your eyes too.
Yeah.
You just walk past it, you're like, blind. Oh, that always made my stomach kind of turn when I saw that, because
Or you just feel it to your butt pucker.
well, just the idea you're running blind and then you feel the ground disappear from out from under you, and how much that would suck, not knowing what's going to happen, what you're going to fall on.
And then falling into like ice cold water.
Yeah.
And I also like I'm not saying like they're bad guys, obviously, like they're the high command of a terrorist organization. But like Serpentor, I'm honestly surprised at how easily like Destro and Baroness and presumably Major Blood and Firefly and all those bad guys just, yeah, shoot, we're down. Let's mutate the world. We'll survive, right?
Yeah. They want to take over the world, but what are they going to be ruling over? It's like a bunch of frogmen.
See, this is how Planet of the Apes really happens.
Oh my god. That's from the Berenstein universe of G.I. Joe, where Cobra actually wins this movie. It turns into Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. Honestly, my favorite line of the movie is still that rhyme. It's like, play it straight or there's no doubt. Just anytime Roadblocks speaks in the cartoon or this movie is a win for me.
Yeah. You know, and speaking of this being a terrorist organization, the absolute worst episode of the Deke G.I. Joe was the one where G.I. Joe and Cobra teamed up to take on a drug lord.
Oh yeah, the headman.
Yeah, and I'm like, what?
I'm sorry.
That's like...
Those ribs do not look like they've been properly cooked.
Yeah, that looked kind of disgusting. But anyway, that would be like the U.S. military joining up with ISIS to take on El Chapo. I mean, how fucking stupid.
Yeah. You gotta wonder, like, based on some of the goofier episodes of even the Sunbow series, like, Globulus is watching Cobra Commander epically fail, and he's just sitting there with, like, resting his chin in his hand, and, like, seriously, cold slither. Seriously.
And in that moment, that's when he was like, get the spores.
Yeah.
We're going to hit the reset button.
Oh, God, yeah. Jesus,
He's got the
chin.
touch. Yeah. Now this is absurd. Just on a whim, 5 guys decide to
infiltrate ISIS.
Yeah, the Terrordrome, this island base that Cobra's had for like both seasons, and they succeed. They actually do it without guns.
Again, G.I. Joe security, it's a joke. But if you look back at how the slaughterhouse is like this mix match of like plane parts and everything, reminds me of the headquarters of this character in this video game called Red. Main character is this female bounty hunter voiced by Elijah Dushku, and she's got this like junkyard training center command post, and it's just like just made out of mismatched tech and like car parts and everything. It's like, man, I want a house like that. And I'm fairly certain they would have changed the security codes after he defected.
Right.
And what language is that? Ooh, I wonder who that was directed at. And you gotta love it in like action movies where the air vents are just large enough for guys to crawl through
Oh yeah.
unnoticed.
Blanchard's gonna be listening to this, and he's just gonna be grinding his teeth. He's like, stop criticizing the movie. He even has that gruffness in his voice when he's whispering, which is hilarious. I'm just
And
imagining them asking him to do that. Can you do that gruff voice and whisper at the same time? It's like, you fucking bastards.
I love how strong Sarge is that he can dangle out a vent, have Antaros, dangle off his legs, and then pick him and the Cobra Viper up out
Yep.
of view before the other guy notices.
Well, that's
And,
how macho this TV show is.
yeah. And I don't know why the other guys were like, did it not dawn on anybody that you're going to break into the armory when you get to the Terrordrome?
Yeah.
Like, think of all the sweet gear you're going to find. Yeah, no
Uh,
shit.
yeah, and the words on that guy's visor were backwards
Yeah.
because his eyes on the other side of that visor like wouldn't have been able to read that.
And seriously, he's on the juice. Like, I know Sergeant Slaughter's a badass, but he's on the juice.
But he still went down to the leg drop.
Yeah. God.
It's in canon, I say.
And you notice what they used to blast the door open? It's one of those old clunky Cobra battle suits from the early, like one of the original miniseries from
Mm-hmm.
from the Sunbow.
Nice touch.
Yeah. I like how he's got a laser Luger.
Well, some of the rifles in the opening scene, they were kicking shells out, but they were still firing lasers, and I was like, wait, what?
Well, no, they use batteries.
I see.
The most gentle torture ever.
Mm-hmm.
Just smick, smick, and yet he's still bleeding. Like, did he bite his tongue?
Mm.
And again,
Uh-oh.
could they not have come up with a better name for him? I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think that's another one where someone came up with a placeholder name, and they said, good, let's go with it.
Like Wingbat or Slime Bat or something,
Hmm.
I mean, that's the G.I. Joe version of Mr. Fuji throwing salt in your eyes.
Yeah. Which means it'll never hit again.
Yeah.
Wow,
Nemesis
I've never heard Serpentor sound like such a bitch.
yeah. I just love the look on Nemesis Enforcer's face. He's like, shit, seriously, man, I'm busy.
Yeah. Russian characters in 80s cartoons.
I love how in the animated series and the movie, the Terrordrome is just this one giant location on Cobra Island versus the comic books where they're prefab structures that Cobra sells to the highest bidder.
I mean, they just blew up something the size of a football stadium. They took out Cobra's main base just on a whim. I mean, not only has Falcon redeemed himself now, he should be decorated once he gets back to G.I. Joe headquarters.
Yeah.
You defeated our worst enemy.
Take a break.
Yep.
I like how the guard tower has like a mini version of the G.I. Joe headquarters cannon.
Mm-hmm. You know, I never thought the giant cannon on the front of the base was really very useful because it only aims in one direction. Doesn't look like it can really point anywhere else.
What's the point? Like, is it a giant antenna? Like they get all the NFL Sunday tickets?
God help you if you fly at us from one specific position.
Exactly. Well, maybe it can like flip the other way, so technically it can fire at two things, or is it like a giant rail gun or something? And what she says here, I always found it sounded weird. It's a knuckle sandwich, woman.
Hmm.
You're gonna live in the country, get the language right.
I would think a knuckle massage is something else.
Yeah.
She might like that. Anyway.
And you know, talk about like Operation Dragonfire. Like around that time, that's when they introduced the Tiger Force and Python Patrol in the
Oh
toys.
my god, yeah.
And they used like the Dragonfire to like infuse vehicles with the Python Patrol at least got infused with the stealth of a snake. I don't think they ever mentioned doing that for the G.I. Joe vehicles other than their new paint jobs.
Yeah. Like, well, the actual third season didn't debut for quite a while after that, so by the time that came along, the Tiger Force was long gone, probably.
Yeah. Also, shouldn't Chuckles be dead?
Yes.
I also love the sound of the fire from like the Cobra Law fighters, just this pop.
I have to admit, Chuckles is kind of funny how he's just riding the chopper and firing this pistol.
Yeah.
at these organic, whatever how they are.
Yeah. Well, it's like the cowboy in Doctor Strangelove.
I was just thinking about that. He should be riding a bomb all the way to the ground.
Well, technically, he just did.
Yeah. We're okay.
I love Law's line here. That's right, Footloose. Get out of the way. Let the villains go right up to the door.
Mm-hmm.
Keep doing what we're doing, Joes. Wait, I've changed my mind.
Okay, Hawk. Whose fault is it now if they get the BET? You blamed Falcon last time.
And it's just, I'm pretty sure everybody on the battlefield that wasn't like a citizen of Cobra Law just shit themselves. It's like the King version of the Graboids from Tremors just popped out of the ground and started wrecking everyone's shit.
I love this, how we blow up the Cobra base and they're like, we're pissed, we're not going to take it anymore. And they basically just destroy G.I. Joe headquarters here.
I don't even think this is G.I. Joe headquarters. It was like I think it's a separate facility.
Oh, okay.
Because they all take off from G.I. Joe headquarters and like travel here.
Mm.
I like this. Ripper is just like, sure, my gun-mounted chainsaw. I like Nemesis for okay, just get out of the way, guys. Let me work.
Let me show you how this is done.
Yeah. And next, I'm going to make a radish rose. See, this is another reason why Duke's the manliest man of 80s animation. He just picked off a mortar launcher off a bike that's supposed to be securely mounted to said bike and fires it. I'm just saying.
I
Him
know.
and him and Roadblock, if they were ever to make a baby together, that kid's gonna have no competition.
He must be infused with Witwicky blood.
Yeah. And I just love the fact that these guys, like, I would imagine the G.I. Joe base is somewhere in like Maryland or New York State or somewhere on like the eastern part of the United States. The slaughterhouse was very clearly somewhere in like Arizona or Utah. And Sarge and the Renegades have traveled that almost insurmountable distance on 4 motorbikes and his, you know, not well thought out tank, and they still made it there in time.
And is this all the same night?
Well, basically, although, okay, no, wait, if the Cobra Islands in the Gulf of Mexico, conceivably, unless they took like a C-130 to get there first and they offloaded their vehicles.
Oh, okay, here it comes.
Gore
Okay.
in a cartoon?
He takes a cobra to the heart.
And that's assuming that they didn't leave the venom in these things.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
But like I said, Duke is the manliest man in 80s animation.
Yeah. Anyone else would be like way dead by now. But
Or-
not Duke.
Or an irreversible coma.
Yeah. But not Duke. Duke just takes a nap for a little while.
Yeah. And I love, just like the Transformers movie, the G.I. Joe movie has those edited for TV, like commercial break spots like that.
Right?
Like, and I'm not saying everyone shouldn't be concerned about Duke, but everyone's about to start bawling like a baby.
Does he have the bandages on top of his shirt?
I think they're underneath his shirt.
Oh, okay.
I like how they like took his shirt open, patched him up, and then did his shirt back up again.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I think I misinterpreted a prior angle.
I love that ADR.
Yeah.
And I love how the movie's like, you know, Lieutenant Falcon is hot rod. Like, they were clearly setting him up to become the next like field commander of G.I. Joe.
Right.
And it's
Yeah,
manly
that
tears. Manly
yeah.
tears.
I heard something that there are very few times very few times ever that men are allowed to cry, and one of them is when a heroic dog dies saving his master. And this is probably the other time
What's
when a G.I. Joe dies.
when a sports legend retires or dies?
Yeah, that too.
You gotta wonder, would this like actual science, would that actually work?
No.
You know, because then you got to take into effect the spores coming down through like what the 5 or 6 different parts of the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
That for the Joes to get there and start the final battle, that worm is moving way too quickly.
Mm-hmm. Because that's like that thing's gonna be up there in a matter of minutes.
Yeah. So is that like a reversible hourglass sort of thing?
Probably.
And I
Well, he's got to do laps.
Yeah. And I love the fact that Falcon has a laser shotgun. Even as a kid, like, I just thought, just being stupid here, Hawk was being stupid. You are literally throwing every other warm body against this. Like, why would you not? Or he's like, and right here, before they left, did he whisper, "Wipe my browser history"?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was a man. And the Joes probably threw around like weird war stories. You know, I arm wrestled Croc Master. I kissed the Baroness. I almost got tongue kissed by the mutant form of Cobra Commander. Okay, you win, Roadblock.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Cobra Commander just gained a whole bunch of mass there.
Yeah,
Because snakes of that size are pretty darn heavy.
yeah. And again, it's like Bert and Ernie in that first battle scene in the Himalayas. Cobra Commander should not be moving.
Mm-hmm. But it's a Sunbow universe. They're like, what are thermodynamics?
Yeah.
Devastator inside of Astro Train.
And just to talk about like how everyone has their own uniform in from the toys and the comics and all that, that's something that I wish there would have been a little more coloring in Retaliation. Because the less said about the RoboCop suits from Rise of Cobra is the better.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wish they kind of had like more slightly recognizable uniforms, like Roadblock's uniform. Like give him like the sleeveless, bandolier of like grenades or something on his shoulder or something.
Right.
At this point, Sarge is like, "This is why I only have an all-protein diet." I always knew the lettuce was out to get me.
I'll never eat greens again.
Also, I love how they have like a remote camera sent back to the base.
Yeah, cameras are magic in old cartoons.
Oh, I'm just in any form of entertainment, really. And I'm not saying Don Johnson didn't do like well. It's just I never really felt like he was putting as much emotion into his voice work as the rest of the cast.
Right.
And again, they just had a conversation with Lieutenant Falcon, who's on the other side. The G.I. Joe has access to wormholes.
Oh my God! Yeah, you're right. That's worse than Galvatron crossing the galaxy in like 40 seconds.
Yeah, like once he gets retro, what do you call it? Or once he got upgraded and he gets his new ship, and it's like, yeah, just, no, not that wormhole, the one on the right. That other one will take us twice as long. Wasn't he a snake to begin with?
Kind of. Oh, there's a line coming up, a famous line.
Yeah. One of my favorites, and
Yes.
I've got a lot in this movie.
Another quotable line. I guess there are a lot of quotable lines in this.
Yeah.
Just not as much as the Transformers. There it is.
That's so good.
I love how one punch knocks all those guys across. I mean, that's almost like Three Stooges-esque.
Well, it is the Dreadnoks. They're
Yeah.
essentially the Stooges of Cobra.
It's like when one guy would slap all the Stooges at once.
Yeah. I think that's another thing that I miss from this movie that I wish was in the animated series. Like, have Big Love in there doing color commentary.
I think we would have gotten tired of him very quickly.
Oh, probably. But I like how, okay, again, cartoon physics. Half of the Joes that fall off the mutant trees should be dead or severely mentally handicapped
Right.
or concussed at the very least.
These Cobra Law troopers are better shots than the Cobra guys. They were actually hitting those choppers and knocking them down.
I just love how Sarge just like clotheslines the guys, but their faces go right into his pits. Oh God, the stank! I like how the red, white, and blue is just welled up in General Hawk, and he's like, forget court martial, son. We're gonna kick some ass for America.
Mm-hmm.
And here's where we find out that Cobra Law is responsible for Godzilla and other kaiju.
See, he's awesome in this movie.
Oh yeah, and I can't remember like that scene right there where those three critters wake up. I can't remember. That reminds me of a horror movie that I saw once.
Yeah.
I just can't think of it. And this is like some Roger Corman-esque creature right here.
I don't think that was Sarge that voice I just heard.
Oh God, this thing's just disgusting.
Oh,
That shot right there reminds me of the Inhumanoids so much. And Tunnel Rat's been driven mad by the experience.
and Cobra. I just noticed Cobra Commander is still following them.
Oh yeah. She's
This is some video game shit right here.
Oh yeah.
I half expect this to be a level in Contra.
At least. Which means Falcon has a chance. She's given a single, wide and clear. I love how this starfish sticks to his gun, just immediately immobilizes it.
Like, I can't use this now. Yeah, it pretty much is the same character arc as Hot Rod. Because here he is facing off the same guy that killed his brother.
Serpentor gets taken out in a very similar fashion to Galvatron.
He does, yeah. He flies away so that he's away from the blast radius.
Yeah. Makes you wonder if he fell into like a lake of tar somewhere or something that just preserved him.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, Galvatron ended up on Char in a lava pool, and okay, he was upgraded by Unicron, so maybe he could have withstood that, but I'm fairly certain at some point he would have started to melt. Again, why aren't Bert and Ernie biting the hell out of Lieutenant Falcon?
Yeah, that was a very bold move he took there.
And again, Bert is the favored son of the two. He only ever pulls Ernie off to use as a weapon. And in the years going forward, watching the show or watching this, I am only ever going to call those snakes that.
Oh, here's our Chekhov's gun.
And I can't decide whether a Serpentor is pissed that Cobra Commander is interfering with this final battle, or some part of him actually feels sorry for him at this moment. Like, oh yeah, he's turned into a snake man. Oh shit, he's turned into a snake.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I see this, I think of like when your parents would pull the dinner table apart to put the leaf in to make it bigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
I, I I don't care what you do. This is my one of my absolute top three favorite moments in the movie.
Yeah. I love this part.
The U.S. of A.
Sarge is about to win the title here.
He's over the rope.
Ding,
His
ding, ding, ding.
and so it's like Edna and the Incredibles. No capes.
Yeah. And again, I have to compliment Sunbow on not making him as gimmicky as they could have been, because anyone else would have been like, "Oh, well, he's a wrestler, so let's make him more like a wrestling guy." And yeah, he does have wrestling moves in the cartoon, but they don't really make much of the fact that he was an AWA star at the time,
Yeah.
because that would have gotten old really quick.
I mean, if you think about it, Globulus, until he comes out of his shell, has got ghetto booty.
Hmm.
And suddenly I'm thinking of Sir Mix-a-Lot. I'm sorry. I can't help it.
Now all I can see is Globulus doing a 7-Up commercial. That's gonna date this commentary. It's the cracking of your vertebrae. Oh, I forgot about this. He jams him right in the eye.
Yeah. And this, again, like I said, like Duke with the cobra in the heart.
Yeah.
And then when you get that full-on shot of Globulus when in a moment here, right there, there's actual gore in this movie.
Yeah.
And just like the Transformers, like that scene where Prowl belches smoke and the lights go out in his eyes. Except for science.
And we never find out what happens to him.
I probably retired to Florida.
Yeah.
And again, sure, why not? The spores are going to survive coming through like the atmosphere, so this, of course, is going to work. But you're blasting it straight up into the atmosphere. And the only way this works, and I'm sorry to bring this up, but the only way this works is if G.I. Joe takes place on a flat Earth. It's the
Yeah, because
only
they were
way
totally
that
in
works.
orbit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if if those things weren't gonna burn up in orbit anyway, coming through the atmosphere, what's this thing gonna do? Unless the only way that works, well, one of the ways that would even work is that if this thing would have been irradiating them down here as well.
Yeah. And like after like Cobra Lost Central is nuked up, to like the rest of these creatures just like drop dead like the Chitauri in the Avengers movie?
Mm-hmm.
You know, are they all like a hive mind of some sort?
Mm-hmm.
What the hell? Those look like actual trees. Real trees have no place in Cobra Law. And I think they all clearly did not make it outside the ice dome, so they're all buried under tons and tons of actual rubble.
Oh, here's the cop-out ending. Thanks, Blaster.
And many babies were made that night.
Yeah. I wonder what Hawk originally said in that scene, because that's not what he said.
He's like, well, I'm going on vacation.
Yeah.
And I love how, like, totally and completely Roadblock gained his sight back
Yeah.
just in time for the final push.
It's like all those Joes walking away, they're going to Disneyland.
And I love how the explosion has so temporarily superheated the atmosphere in the Himalayas that they can all walk away in their normal uniforms instead of wearing like the fur collared parkas.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. I still think the ending of the movie should have been like the beginning. They should have had an ending like that. And you just to have like that huge opening. Like I, as a kid, I kind of wanted the ending of Over the Credits to have like another ending like that.
Right.
Oh,
So where does this rank on the overall GI Joe movie scale?
okay.
Or
Well, kind of like I said, if you go absolute worst GI Joe movie first, it's Rise of Cobra. I mean, I got some affection for that being the first live action movie. They perfectly cast General Hawk and Snake Eyes in that movie because
Mhm.
it's God, I'm forgetting. Is Dennis? He was in Inner Space. God, I can't remember. But they had those. Ray Park was Snake Eyes.
All right. That
And
poor guy, he never gets to show his face on camera.
unless it's like Heroes, the TV series.
Right.
Oh God. Or at least the first couple of seasons weren't that bad. But yeah, no, Rise of Cobra is the worst. And it does get better in scale after that, because then you look at like the Spy Troops and Valor versus Venom, and there was another one in there. I think it's like Ninja Battles, which were like DVD films that were put in with some of the toys for like some like lines that were put out over the years, kind of keep the brand active in toy stores. Of those, I would say Spy Troops is okay. Ninja Battles it's kind of weak. I wouldn't recommend it. And Valor versus Venom is actually it's a lot of goofy fun. It's the lead-in film to like the Sigma 6 TV series if you folks ever want to watch that.
Mm.
After that, it would be Retaliation, and then the original like because it's the first three. There was like the three miniseries. I would put the three miniseries from the original Sunbow series and this kind of on the same scale because this is like pure classic GI Joe.
Right.
And honestly, I haven't watched this movie in such a long time. I kind of want to go. Like, I have the original Marvel series on like Comixology. I think I might go back and start reading that again, like from the beginning. I don't know how would you rate the movies?
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen the live action ones, and I haven't really seen anything after Sunbow. So,
Yeah.
I know I saw the very first one, the 1983 one, fairly recently, and I'm gonna say that the Pyramid of Darkness is probably my favorite of the Sunbow stuff.
Dennis
Just 'cause
Quaid. I just
the
finally remembered that.
it's the most pure of the classic GI Joe of all those 5-part miniseries,
Yeah.
and
Like, it's just stuff like this just makes me nostalgic for being a kid. And like,
mhm.
I wish I could have paid more attention to this stuff when I was a kid. Like, not to the level that we've kind of gone over it tonight, but just overall. And with that, the movie's over.
Yep, the last hurrah of Sunbow, and I will not be doing the My Little Pony movie.
Oh, come on, Neil. You got to do the trilogy.
Oh no, God,
You can get
that's a
Blanchard for
terrible
that
movie.
one.
It's a terrible movie.
Actually, no. I would gladly hear you do that. I would beg you to do the My Little Pony movie if you get Mike Dodd to do the commentary with you. Because Dodd's gonna make that shit weird as fuck. You're thinking about it now, aren't you?
I'm thinking about it. I'll consider it.
That's all I ask.
So anyway, folks, you saw the credits just end, so we'll be saying goodnight. Thank you for joining us, and I will see you next week. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, and consider giving to the Patreon. For $2 a month, you get extra bonus shows. The link is down below in the description.